Phones on silent, please.
Phones are on silent. Hey, this is Amrita and Andrew. We write and produce as VJ and Stevens, and we podcast our way through freelance, free-range life. If you're thinking about taking a leap off the beaten path in any part of your life, our inexpert advice is, don't think twice.
Great. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Think Twice.
How you feeling, baby?
I'm feeling just fine. I got a good night's sleep last night after a couple of nights where I both drank too much and slept too little.
Uh-huh.
And I know about my body that exercise and diet are important, but the most critical thing for me is sleep.
Yeah.
That if I don't have sleep, my whole body just gets thrown off. I crumble.
Yeah. I fear that the answer to that equation for me is exercise. That's my fear, because I think that might be true, but I hate that that's the answer. I don't want it to be.
Yeah. So I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling hydrated and rested and
rested,
ready to take on life.
Moisturized. You know, I feel so happy.
I love to hear that.
Really, really happy. I feel really happy. And I feel like I'm happy because I'm the master of my destiny. That's how I feel today.
Is that because yesterday we felt like we were thrown into a storm?
Yes, it's because
bullshit.
Because overall in life, I'm very happy.
Yeah, right.
And because of that, I'm able to more easily identify, like, when I'm not happy, what was the reason for that? Mm-hmm. And it's the sole times that I feel unhappy in life recently are when I feel like my choices aren't my own.
Yes. Yes, which is exactly a couple of the days we had this week, which we don't need to dive too deeply into to bring the people down, because anyone with a job is already brought down far enough. And the worst thing about jobs are the people you have to work with.
Oh, by a mile, a country mile. So I almost shared this sensory experience with you yesterday, but then I thought, I would like to share this with you on the air. So we have a friend who bought this candle, a really, really fancy, expensive candle. It supposed to smell like gingerbread, holiday, like loveliness. It smelled really good in the store. She took it home. She lit it. And then it wasn't until it had been burning for a while that she realized from like a distance that it had sort of a fart smell to it. And I came over. She's like, it really smells like farts. I don't know what's going on. It's supposed to be gingerbread. It cost an arm and a leg. I don't know what to say about it. So I was very intrigued by the fart candle. Went over to her house, immediately had her test it out for me. So the curious thing about it is that when it's close up, it smelled delicious. Like, let's say within a 3-foot radius. Farther than a 3-foot radius, it smelled like fart. So what we've uncovered is a new genre of scent.
What is that in your hand, and why are you holding it?
So this is my hand lotion that I've been using.
Okay.
All winter. I was out to drinks with our friend, and she was like desperately in need of some hand cream. So I gave her this, and she's like, oh, it smells really lovely. Here. And then she puts on her hands. We continue talking for a while, and she's like, now that I've moved my hands away from my face, this lotion smells exactly like urine. Like exactly like urine, like old urine.
So you asked me to put this on my hands
right now? So I
right
want you
now?
to put it on your hands, and I want you to, with that in mind, from close up.
Okay.
And from far away.
We'll continue this conversation and see if urine. Well, good thing I haven't peed on myself today.
We've uncovered a new genre of scent, which is like the reverse Monet. It's like from close up, it makes a lot of sense. And then from far away, it's a huge mess. So describe what you're smelling close up.
Close up, and this is Love, Beauty, and Planet, Muru, Butter, and Rose. And it does does give me a lot of, well, it gives me some rose, sort of
It's
a
floral.
powdery rose. Nothing too sharp, nothing too much. So we'll see.
We'll see how it sits, because once I smelled what she smelled, like once I identified, my brain was like, yeah, it smells like pee. I have not.
You recognize it too.
I recognize it too, and I have been unable to use the remainder of this.
Hasn't been on my skin very long, but I can already smell the change between what it smells like in the tube and what it smells like on my skin.
Yeah.
And I think there might be an ingredient that mixes with, I know everyone
Sweat or
smells
something.
differently, of course,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's already, I can tell how the powdery rose mixed with some like skin
Whatever
smell,
is on
like
there.
a clean skin
Yeah.
smell, like a neutral skin smell. It's starting to give me, even
Like
up close, it's starting to transform a little bit.
Kind of a funk. But
Like not
imagine-
quite to a funk yet, but
it's gonna get there.
but like a scent that's covering up a funk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the spritz of a floral perfume covering
Like a
an
diaper.
unflushed toilet. Yeah. It's diaper. It's the powder. It's probably the
It's the
powder diaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been using this hand cream all winter, and people have been like,
thought you've peed on yourself.
yeah, this is a woman who's wearing a scent to cover her own
Incontinent-
diaper
this
smell.
incontinent woman.
Like this is actually designed for a close-up
I mean,
radius.
yeah, there's no way to solve for this.
No.
Though.
no. I'm just saying that this was a genre of scent that I had previously been unaware of, and now I know.
Was that candle only burned in one space? Because don't blame the candle, blame the space. That's what I always say.
You think there was an eau de fart in the room? That
Well,
was...
things mix with things. I mopped with ammonia the other day, and then there was like a candle in the room, and those two, the combination of lemon scented ammonia and like the candle was strange. So,
No, that's fair. That's fair.
well, maybe it was like a rancid order.
Yeah, bad
wines
candle.
can turn. I'm sure essential oils or whatever they use can turn.
Yeah, it's all natural, so that's possibly it. Gingerbread went in a foul direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listen, I have I always, take my long walks around the neighborhood, and New York in winter prevents me from doing that as much as I would like. So
You're like a 5 mile a dayer.
So I go in circles that are much smaller than they used to be. So I pass by the same things over and over. So I have a 1.5 mile loop before my fingers freeze or whatnot. And I always pass by a Catholic school in our neighborhood. And they have this motto for their elementary school, which every time I pass by, I read it. It says their motto is prepare to be prepared. And it's just, to me, a very curious motto for a school, because it's like it makes no promise. And it got me thinking of prepare to be prepared.
But
it's like almost a warning.
I was gonna say it's a warning. It's not like a motto, and it doesn't. Like as you said, it doesn't make any promises about what the school is gonna do for you. It's just telling you in general, hey, keep your eyes open.
Well, that's the Catholic Church for you. Definitely keep your eyes open. Or if you're going to Catholic school, keep your eyes open and your zipper zip.
Oh, you've been watching too many Catholic Church documentaries lately. What other school mottos did I have you thinking of?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I did look up some before we got on the air out of curiosity. I tried my elementary school, but they don't have a motto. They've transitioned to something called an intelligence academy.
That sounds like very euphemistic. It sounds like a place where you like lobotomize people or something.
But I was able to find my high school motto, North Hall High School, up there in Northeast Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia. North Hall High School, providing challenges, envisioning success.
Providing challenges
And envisioning success,
but
not
not actually
so we
achieving it.
see it. We
create
might
lots
not.
of problems.
It's on the horizon. We create problems,
We don't have any solutions to them.
and we hope that you're successful.
we have a strong vision. We're manifesting.
So that one's not so great. So I poked around a little bit more on the internet and decided to go to colleges and universities using ours. And Amherst, your alma mater, actually, I think has a great motto.
Oh, I do know that. I do actually know the motto.
Which is?
Terras irradiant.
Which translates to?
Let them light the earth or something?
Let them enlighten the land.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a really nice
quite
one.
nice.
Because it's not like prepare to be prepared, like be scared of coming here. It's not like providing challenges, envisioning success, like we do some vague thing while you're here. It's instead like what are you going to do with this? We hope that you enlighten the earth. I really like that. I went to the University of Michigan. Theirs is simply arts, knowledge, truth. So I guess at some point they just decided to just name things. Yeah, it's in Latin. And then I decided to see, out of curiosity, what Liberty University's motto is. that school over there in Lynchburg. And theirs is simply knowledge aflame. Which I think
actually that's very apropos.
Really funny.
It's really funny.
It's like we burn knowledge.
We set it on fire.
This is
a dumpster fire of
at least they're being honest.
Institutions.
It's like knowledge, we burn that.
I was trying to see whether I could determine what my high school motto is. And I think actually my high school doesn't have a motto.
Yeah, it seems like mottos have gone to the wayside to be replaced by mission statements. Which are full of jargony stuff. My middle school's motto was placed by a short mission statement, which said, and I quote, "Our teachers are great and our students are excellent." And now,
that's also bad. That's
so
also
who is
really
sitting
bad.
around here being like, okay, the decisions we make need to speak to our mission statement. What's our mission statement, Nancy? Our teachers are great and our students are excellent. Like, it doesn't help you do anything.
It doesn't help you do it, but also...
to make any decisions.
But it also makes it seem like your teachers are, like, just fine. Like, your students are really good.
I went to the middle school, and I can attest.
Your teachers are, like, fine. They're, like, okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, even that's a little bit of PR spin.
It's a stretch. I was thinking about this conversation we had the other day about white lies, and I thought of some more. Like, so the question was like whether you ever told a white lie that sort of that got away from you, kind of not a dangerous lie, but just something.
Well, the nature of a white lie is
yeah. But then you maybe got like beholden to the lie.
Well, you find yourself in a situation. It's sort of akin to a Mary Kennicott situation. When you tell a white lie sometimes, where it's like, actually, it's easier for me just to say, I went to her birthday party.
Sidebar, Mary Kennicott was the name of a character on the soap opera All My Children in the 1970s. In Andrew's family, it is also a shorthand for, don't worry about it, the backstory is not worth explaining. The story of how that came to be is, well, Mary Kennicott.
Like, no one's ever going to ask me again.
Right. Except that sometimes
it sticks in someone's
craw. And then you either have to like have this very strange thing where you come clean up that you're like, I don't know why I lied about that. Or you just have to like live with that forever and be like, okay, the new canon is I went to that party, I was there. It was fine. Also, my family's tried to adopt Mary Kennicott, by the way, and they can never remember the words Mary Kennicott. So they'll be like, Alice O'Neill. You know what I mean? I'm like, works. No. So I thought of two that I had committed.
Little white
lies that I was then like felt beholden, like too ashamed to like fess up to. So one of them is extra silly, but one of them is more recent, which was that I went on a first date wearing a fake septum ring clipped in on my septum, and for some reason, I don't know why, the guy goes like, oh, you have your septum pierced or something. And or said, is that real? Like, it was more specific than that. I was like, is that real? And I just said yes without thinking about it. And then I was like, oh no, now I'm a person who has a pierced septum.
And now if I ever see this man, I have to
I did. And then I was like, I have to wear it again. And then but then I was like, at this point, it's like, that feels like such a foolish thing to lie about, that like coming clean about it was like worse than just like,
I mean, that's what the white lies that we find ourselves in. Because
Isn't that
then
the
it's like a
stupidest
whole
thing?
conversation where they're like, but why did you lie about that? And then you have nothing to say, but it's like, I don't know. Why did I lie about that?
I don't know.
And we're all very self-righteous in that moment when we catch someone else in a lie.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Meanwhile, we all walk around having at some point in time said a white lie. But we conveniently forget when we catch someone else in that white lie.
That you're
But
like,
that's so stupid.
That's
I would have just said, no, it's fake. Like, what does it matter?
I don't know. I guess in my head, I must have thought like this makes me seem cool or something, or like in the flash of the moment, or maybe I just said it and then thought again, like was like, oh, this will never like come back to haunt me. But of course it did. So anyway, luckily things fizzled out with that person, so it wasn't like I had to carry on the charade or
If I had to guess, probably in that moment, you're like, if I say no, then I have to explain myself.
I think that's probably what it was, because I thought it was like a stylish choice, and then didn't think that someone would ask about it. Like,
it's like when people wear glasses that don't have a prescription.
Yeah.
And they were just a white lie. Oh, they're prescription.
Yeah.
They're not just
they're just
glasses.
not for fashion. Because then you have to explain yourself. Anything path of least resistance. So the second white lie thing that I thought of is like a little more peripheral, but way dumber. So I was probably in like middle school, let's say. I came across this like Oscar Wilde quote. It's kind of like a famous quote, so the quote is, "I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train."
Okay.
So I was just remembering that I interpreted this quote, oh wait, it's really good to have a sensational diary. And in my mind, I thought that meant I should make up something.
Sensationalize things.
I should sensationalize things and write them in my own life. So this is a white lie to myself. Nobody's even like in really theory funny. Reading this. So I like wrote, and I have all my diaries, by the way, since I was 5.
An incredibly salacious middle school diary.
I wrote some salacious things that were not true. Very dramatic, very emotional tales. Now, I think like you may have some context on this, but like in deep within my soul, there is a theater kid.
At the very least, a flair for
the dramatic. So I wrote some very salacious lies about myself. I mean, that like things that I had done or experienced or whatever in my diary, in my middle school diary. But then I was just remembering this like just this morning, like only just now today I realized I completely misinterpreted that quote. It's not about like sensationalizing the things that you've done. The quote is about like living a life that's so sensational that like you've entertained yourself.
Right.
So it's like, oh wow, I really only got that like 20 years later, 20 plus years later, that actually it's about just like doing the bad things instead of like pretending to do the bad things.
This is inspiring me to think back on my younger years, and because I know if I thought a little bit, I would come up with some white lies. And kids, I mean, I do just have vague memories of like baldly saying something that I knew wasn't true.
Right. Like
in an argument or something.
Were you a kid who always had to win an argument?
No, I was a kid who wasn't having that many arguments. I mean, I just walked away.
Still true of you today. You're like, not worth my time.
I feel like I want to do little white lies. Like professionally, I keep myself from telling little white lies all the time.
You keep yourself, or you do tell them?
I don't tell them, but I'm tempted to. Like, oh, I didn't see your email. Oh,
well, I do that all the time. I do.
So this is I don't. I wonder if it's to my benefit to tell those kind of little white lies.
No, because it feeds into the garbage like doublespeak that rules all of our lives in the workplace, and everybody knows that they're white lies. Like it becomes part of just like the etiquette.
See,
like there's never a time when you don't actually see
I'm not
someone's
tell.
email.
I know.
That never happens. It's just like I saw your email and I either deemed it like not important, or I forgot, or I deleted it. You do delete them. Okay, that is a power move that I hope to like. I can the thrill, the frisson of like rebellious delight I feel when I see you do that. It's like I can never. It's like somebody asked you a direct question and then you just go boop.
Well, but sometimes I go in my trash and I'm like, oh, I guess I should. But it momentarily makes me feel better if I delete it, and then sometimes I'll go in my trash and like, because I know I have to answer it, but I don't want to see it in my inbox because it's not that important.
Mm-hmm. It's more the catharsis of pressing delete, even if you go back and actually deal with it.
Yeah, so I like delete the person in my mind, put them where they're in their proper
that's nice.
place.
That should be a button in your email.
Well, you know what else should be a button? You should be able to set to specific people an away message, even when you're not away.
Like, please don't bother me.
No, to like a person that you really don't want to talk to. Like, I'm out of the office today. But you should be able to set that away to just like the 3 people you don't want to talk to.
You know what? I guarantee you there's a plugin for that. There has to be. Like my sister wanted to set up, she was like, I want to set up like a call tree on my own phone where it's like, if you've called to bother me with your bullshit today, please press 1. If you're angry at me, press 2.
When I worked at admissions at a private school, the first day I came back, I went to the restroom to pee. Mm-hmm. Came back, had 75 voicemails.
Wait, 75? How is that even possible?
Yeah, that my mailbox didn't fill up. I guess it just had unlimited.
That's crazy.
I was like, and I tried to listen to all of them, but as I'm doing it, more and more are coming in.
Right.
So I'm just like
Are these just like anxious parents who are trying to check up on their applications?
The way the cycle works is that applications open up on a certain day for all of the private schools in New York City. Mm-hmm. And then you schedule tours, and then you schedule interview, and there's just a multi-step process. And before I started, you had to call to make an appointment for everything. Call to tour the school. Call to have an interview for your child. Call to have an interview for yourself.
Wow.
Call to request an application. And we digitized some of that. But anyway, actually we digitized all of it. But I went into my voicemail message and I was like, I can't prevent people from leaving a message, but what I can do is leave a 5-minute long message that they have to listen to
before it goes beep.
Yes.
Oh my God! Wait. Oh, this is brilliant.
So
this is like devious.
Welcome to I'm This is, and let me read you all of the important dates for this year. And I would read like all the important dates.
Like,
you can find this information at blah blah blah. And you can also do all of this online at If you and I said something, so you're like, please allow us 3 to 4 business days to get back to you. It was like a whole thing.
Wow. So your hope secretly was that if you talked for long enough, the people would just hang up before they get to the part where they have to leave a voicemail. They'll be like, "Oh, it's not worth it. Yeah. It's not worth it. My time is too precious."
It worked in conjunction with me digitizing everything.
That's an unusual solution for you, which is to like annoy someone so much that they are like that they give up bothering you.
Oh, well, yeah, that job
make it really inconvenient for people to bother you.
Well, I mean, it was like I'm going to get to you, but you're in line. You're number 737 in line, and people don't like that, especially rich people.
I was about to say rich people, rich New Yorkers who feel like they're entitled to something do not want to be 737th in line for sure.
Because they have to schedule their trip to Mallorca. And they need to do, mm-hmm. It's always
they need to get things settled with the admissions.
Well, you got to understand that we are heading to Spain to do the thing, whatever. Anyway.
There are a few people with greater power in New York City than the admissions administrator at a private school.
Oh yeah. Watching my boss politely put people into their place was amazing. I always look at real estate online because I like looking at houses mm-hmm. and thinking about what I would do and thinking about where I would live and what I want, and I can really articulate that now, actually. But
like in terms of what type of property?
Type of property, yeah, all of it.
Okay.
Features I would want in a house, features I wouldn't want in a house, mm-hmm. location, all that. And we are in a very hot real estate market right now.
Yes.
And HGTV and other networks have so many home renovation shows, tiny home shows, house flipping shows. But I have a new idea for a new show.
I've been watching a lot of HGTV lately, so I'm wondering if what you're going to say is something that
is already on the air.
Already on the air.
Yeah, see, I'm out of the loop because we don't have traditional television. So you tell me.
Okay.
But this new show that it's called something like Overpaid.
Uh-huh.
And it's where people bought at the height of the market and then their house lost value and they're unable to move, but they don't like where they're living.
Oh.
And so like a realtor and some renovation people, architect, whatever, come in and like, what can we do
with what we've got?
Like the budget's going to be small because you're not going to resell for a while. How can we, on a budget, make this property work for you?
Without you having to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, if that is not already a show, it's definitely in development because I thought you were going to say something a little bit different. So HGTV, of course, is in the business of, you want it to be relatable, but you don't want it to be too real. Like you don't want to like highlight anyone's current suffering too much. However, because of the trends right now, there are a ton of shows that are very close to this concept, actually. So there's a show that is new, that's being like advertised a lot. I was on vacation last week, watched a lot of HGTV. It's called literally "Why the Heck Did I Buy This House?" That's the title of the show, and it is based on the fact that a lot of people bought during the pandemic.
And regret it. So that's sort of what we're seeing right now. What you're saying is like going to be the 3 months from now, because that was people who bought when like they could afford it, right? And
then they realized actually with all the maintenance and upkeep and like all this stuff, I can't actually afford it. So that was different. So they bought when the price was low and interest rates were low, and they still regret it. Now we're gonna have the thing where people bought when it was really, because they were like, oh, they got the frenzy, sharks in the water, blood in the water, and then they were like, they snapped it up something, and then they were like, oh no, it's like this is never gonna be as valued as high as that again.
And I can't sell and get out without
yeah. So I absolutely, you're very prescient in pitching the show, and I guarantee you this is going to be on the air in like 6 months, 8 months. Give them that much.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could be a very heartwarming story, and people coming to terms with like what home is other than an investment, because home is more than just the financial investment.
Totally. I mean, I think like the HGTV isn't quite on the level where they're doing like holistic philosophical conclusions like that. For instance, like we're still seeing a lot of shows where it's like we're just seeing the like fantasy renovation of for a block of homes that are in like the most like shitbox exurb of all time, where there's like there's nothing around it, and it's like, oh, this one has such a nice view over this ditch. Like there's nothing.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much HGTV wants to dip into like city planning philosophies for, how we organize ourselves, our physical space.
They should.
Well, there's a lot of conversation online about it. A lot of people are very interested about city planning issues, and about repurposing the suburbs, particularly right now.
What are you seeing in terms of that? Because I recently met somebody who, jokingly, of course, was like, the only solution is we have to rewild the suburbs. We just like relocate everyone who lives there and turn it back into wilderness, and that's the only solution in order to like solve our like financial problems, like environmental problems. Obviously, of course, it's not like a real solution. That would never, But what are some actual things that are part of that
you say it's not a real solution, but there is an element of it that might be the real solution, because suburbs were built not to sustain and not to regenerate. They were built. They're a one generation. Well, as we see now, they are a one generation solution to housing. To replace what was built in the 50s and 60s now is impractical, to say the least. And that's setting aside any environmental impact. So they're
like financially impractical.
Financially impractical. So there is an element where there might be some of that infrastructure will deteriorate. And not to get too deeply in the weeds about.
No, I do want to get deeply in the weeds though, because like I was just reminded of something that you said, like, oh, the suburbs are basically a Ponzi scheme. Like they were not built. They were knowingly built in a way that they weren't going to be able to be self-sustainable. Urban people are subsidizing disproportionately the maintenance of like the suburbs. Of course, like I thought it was such a good like soundbite that I like deployed that one time, and then someone was like, "Oh, explain more," and then I was like, "Look, I know that I agreed with the conclusion. I just can't remember the bullet points that got us there."
Yeah. Well. Essentially, our federal government was very invested in the 50s and 60s in getting people into the suburbs and to get people into single-family homes.
Because of cars.
So all of
right?
that, no, not because of cars, because of crowded inner cities.
Okay.
Cars seem to be the solution to pull people out into the city to get, it's Robert Moses' philosophy of like fresh air, but at what cost? So the federal government was very invested in making that happen, so therefore they funded the suburbs. And the idea being that if you get enough taxpayers into the suburbs, then it will sustain itself. Well, the simple math doesn't work,
because the density
actually never worked.
Right.
There are people who talk about the death of malls, the death of like shops in the suburbs, and they talk about and that's like eroding your tax base. But the conversation needs to start that there was never a tax base that could sustain these towns across the country. Even in the mid 80s, when everyone was going to the mall, that
just because the population density of the suburbs is too low.
It was too low. It was never the cities, states, and the federal government was still subsidizing all the energy, all the pavement, all the pipes, all the infrastructure. Which is similar to all of these people in backwoods Tennessee, where I grew up in North Georgia, all these crazy backwards, extreme right-wing. I'm not talking about conservative in your approach in life. I'm talking about extreme right-wing people who talk about no government.
Right.
And yet they're sitting in their house with television and electricity and water. And
they expect being able to have connectivity and 4G and like Wi-Fi and like all that infrastructure.
Well, they expect to have water, plumbing.
Sure. Even
they expect to have electricity, and those only came to that part of the country after the Great Depression and after we had the public works programs.
I hadn't really. It's a really funny like catch-22 for people who believe in like small government to the extreme, is that like living sort of out unless you're really a survivalist, living like sort of in an exurb or something like that, you're miring us deeper in a situation where the federal government has to have a huge budget in order to sustain the exurb that you're living in. So like you're actually contributing to a big government by making that choice, as opposed to like someone who lives in a city.
Yep.
I had never thought of that before.
Yeah.
The rise of the suburb, the reasons for that are that as a response to city overcrowding. See, I would never have known that.
As a response to the city overcrowding, particularly, the first suburbs were here on Long Island to get people out of the Lower East Side. Just the density issue. The Lower East Side was the most dense place that's ever existed on Earth in the turn of the 20th century. There were more bodies living down there than any place today or ever before.
Like per capita or per square foot type of thing.
Which creates all the problems you can imagine, from disease. And
like you just know that, and like you just know that. You just had that.
Well,
in
I
your
didn't
pocket.
just know that, but other people knew that, and then they told me.
Sure, yeah, but I like there's certain things where it's like maybe it's common knowledge to certain people, but that was not common knowledge to me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then it just coincided with the car and everything that the car represented.
I had thought that if I had someone ask me to explain this from scratch without any references, I would be like, oh well, the burbs were because of like the automotive lobby. I mean, I'm sure that was part of it too, but like that I would have ascribed that as being like a primary factor rather than like a supporting factor.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happened concurrently. The goal was to move people out of the city, and then the car became the method by which the government decided that was the best, because the interstate system didn't come until the 50s.
Yeah.
Until the Eisenhower administration. The car, was decades before
right.
that.
Sure.
And then you had Levittown was one of the first suburbs, which is out on... Actually, there are many Levittowns now, multiple Levittowns, but the first one was built in Long Island, which looks like your typical suburb that we know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've had many conversations. We've had many conversations about, choosing to live in a city as being like a values thing, about, principles and values that lead you to choose where you're living. And I hadn't ever thought about it on this sort of level of even on like an economic level. You could talk about like socially, the diversity, the even environmental reasons, like living in a city is all the reasons and principles and values that speaks to. But like I hadn't even thought about it on this like scope and scale. So I'm having a little bit of a light bulb moment right now.
Well, recently in thinking about and looking at real estate and thinking about what I like in structures, seeing a car in front of a house doesn't bother people, and it bothers me. I don't want to see a garage, and I don't want to see a carport where cars are parked. I don't want like a driveway that goes in front of my house where I park my car in front of my house. If I look at a house, I don't want to see like the machinery. But it just got me thinking how like the car is so integrated into our understanding of living.
Yeah.
Living such that when we look at a house and we see a car, we don't see, it's just like, yeah, well, that's natural. That's
right.
How it is.
Right.
Whereas, the Mews, which were the places where horses were stored, like in London,
Mews?
MEWS, isn't that in historical cities, horses and carriages and stuff
Yeah,
were.
that's, again, not common knowledge to me. But the term Mews originally, MEWS, not MUSE, originally referred to the royal stables, so called because they were built where the king's hawks were once mewed or confined at molting or at mew time. So then that became a thing. It's like a parking lot almost.
It's a parking lot. But and now many of them have been converted into living quarters.
Yes, that is also part of the definition here. In England, mews, a yard or street lined by buildings originally used as stables, but now converted into human dwellings.
And there you have
it. You have the smug look of a person who deployed a word and knew how to use it correctly.
There are so many times I deploy a word and I know that I'm using it correctly, but I couldn't use it in any other circumstance.
Yep.
Anyway, the last thing I'll say about this suburb conversation is that we have a lack of affordable housing. We have a lack of housing in general, and we have a lack of affordable housing in this country because affordable housing only comes about when there is enough housing. We don't need to forget that housing would be affordable if we had more than we needed.
Right.
It'd be very affordable.
Right.
So,
and whose benefit is that in to make sure that there isn't enough?
Supply and squeezing supply preserves value.
Yep.
And there are, I would say every homeowner would prefer to preserve value. And in that way, being a homeowner, you don't want there to be enough
Right.
housing.
You don't want there to be enough housing. So like that's part of again your values decision that you've made there.
But I hope that some of these commercial spaces in the suburbs can be used and thoughtfully repurposed for housing.
Grand dreams. It's funny because like I didn't intend to talk about urbanism or anything, but then like yesterday we were just talking about like that the like seed of your urbanism was planted through Richard Scarry's Busy Town.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Richard Scarry's Busy Town, and is that what it's called, Busy Town?
Richard Scarry's Cars and Trucks and Things That Go was my favorite particular book.
That's adorable. And Sesame Street. Well, you were
and Sesame Street.
The urbanism book of Sesame Street. But you were describing like that all these busy like urban little scenes with all the animals doing everything, and you would just be sitting there as a kid like looking like look at all these little creatures doing all their little jobs.
Yeah. I also really loved as a kid what is it called when you like slice something? Like take a, well, I'll just use
like a
an
cross
example,
section.
like a cross section.
Uh-huh.
There was this book that had a cross section of a family home.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love, well, of course.
And it was a Victorian home. And so it was like 4 stories.
Yeah,
It had
where
the
do you
basement
think? Where
with
do you
3
think the little dollhouse thing, the fixation of mine? It's
Yeah.
like similar to that. It's like being able to see all the things and all
And
the
in
little
it, they had
scenes.
everyone was in there. Someone was in the bedroom. Someone was in this like attic office. Someone's in the basement doing laundry. Someone was,
Uh-huh.
and I would stare at that page. And even today, I really love seeing an apartment block where you see people's lights on at night and seeing people walk past the window cooking dinner, or you see them watching TV, and I just like, it's very comfortable to me. People living their lives.
Yeah. We share that with the certain nighty wearing folks across the way.
I don't know if that woman has ever put on real
I don't
clothes
think
since October, at least.
Not that I've ever seen,
Yeah.
but this is a woman who's clearly most at ease in her kitchen with her different colored nighties. I thought she was a
the
ghost
amount
for
of
a
times
while.
I've been naked in my room looking at her, and it's like, God, she must be able to see me.
She must be able to see you. I told you I like came out of the shower and I didn't think about it, and my shades were all the way open, and it was just like my tits were just fully out. I'm sure of it that I looked into her eyes, that we saw each other, and then I hit the deck.
Generally, I'll do push-ups during my workout. But I think the taller you are,
You have come up with this theory that there's some sort of fulcrum of
I think so.
that it's like tall people are at a deficit. I guess
Look.
if I start working out, I can try to prove you know.
Well, you're also a woman, so you're distributed differently too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, short men, short kings, verify.
Sure.
Speaking of kings, short or otherwise.
Yep.
You had asked me whether I would be able to succinctly summarize all the different dating platforms.
Okay.
And I did take a moment to think about it. Are you ready?
Yeah. I don't remember posing this question. And why did I ask the question?
Because we were discussing a group dating app at a certain point, and you were like, "Oh my God, you've tried so many of these dumb things. Like, you should like try to summarize all the things that you've tried."
Oh yes. Let's tell the people about that thing, which was circa 2012.
Circa 2012. So that was a thing called Grouper. I was trying to think of what it was called because I was like, it was like something about fish. I was like,
Flounder is what it should have been called, because it's no longer around.
And how I felt while I was on that date. That was good. That was a dad joke, and I saw it and I liked it. So Grouper, I was like, it wasn't Plenty of Fish. That was also a thing.
That was also a thing.
Which I had. That's one
That
I
might
haven't
still
tried.
be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that one I haven't tried. But Grouper was an app where they would set you up on a group date. So it was like three on three. So like
Three friends
meet up with another
group of three
friends. This was probably one of the worst quote unquote dates. I mean, I don't know if you can really call it a date. So the point is that it's like, oh, it's so much easier to hang in a group than it is to like hang one-on-one, which first of all,
it's not.
that is not true. Or maybe
Not
that's for
in
a
a
certain type of
romantic sense.
person. But so it was terrible. It was terrible. And I think one of the key issues is that we hadn't come up with like an exit strategy or any sort of way of like conveying like, are we having a nice time? Are we not having a nice time as a group of three? You know what I mean?
Because one person could be having a nice time.
One person could be having a nice time. And then what do? Do you leave that person there? That's what we did. Spoiler alert. But it's like there needed to be some sort of plan where we're like, we need to like circle up, or we need to like have a covert text chain or something like that. So like I was like miserable. And I think our other friend was miserable. And then the third person was like kind of having a nice night out on the town with these people. And then we just like suffered through rounds and rounds and rounds of drinks. And then eventually, like, I was like, what do I do? Do I just say out loud, like, hey, I'm going to leave? Like,
Yeah.
which you can easily do when it's just one-on-one. So Grouper terrible experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. One and done with Grouper. And it seems like they floundered. Yeah. I used OkCupid, which is still around.
Yep.
I used it when it was a website.
Web-based platform.
It was not an app. There was no smartphones. It was just
You logged in.
a website. You logged in and
You've got
on your
mail
computer.
sort of situation.
Absolutely. Of course, I have used, the Bumbles and
Why is it
Hinges.
called OkCupid?
Like it was like it's like OK Computer maybe, like OK Cupid, find me a match.
Oh, okay.
It's
just like an
idea.
all right Cupid. It's like it's not like a great Cupid. Like
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like
that
it's like
good a
motto.
matchmaker. I'm a fine matchmaker.
okay. It's okay. It's an OK Cupid.
Yeah.
So of course I've tried the other, the ones that still exist now too, like
Yeah,
Bumble and
Hinge, Coffee
and
Meets Bagel.
Oh yeah, Coffee Meets Bagel, which my sister thought was a Jewish Indian dating app. The brown coffee, and then bagels or the Jews coming together. And she was like, "That's such a specific demographic." I was like, "What do you mean?" I see where she was going with that. And that was when you only get 10 bagels a day, or you get a dozen bagels a day. Actually, it was you only got 10 bagels a day, which makes no sense.
That's weird.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different now, but that one still exists. Bumble is basically emotional labor disguised as empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Because the premise of that is like the woman has to message first within 24 hours or it goes away. And if you're a woman who dates women, it's basically
Just 24-hour.
Anyone, I guess.
Time.
Yeah. So I hate that. Oh, do you remember How About We?
No. And is that when you proposed a date and
Yes.
someone accepted it or not?
Yes. No one wanted to do the things that I wanted that I thought were fun.
So it was the concept you just threw out into the inner space webs.
Yes.
I would like to go to
I
Brooklyn
want to go
Botanical
to
Gardens to
and
see
then
the cherry
and
blossoms.
then go to drinks at this place, and then it was like people.
Go say, I would like to do that
I would
too.
like to do that. Yeah. In theory, kind of a good idea.
Mm-hmm. No one ever wanted to do your.
Yeah, I guess I had bad date ideas or something. Also, we can't forget Talkify, which was the one where it was like there was like a digital component, but it was like a real life matchmaker, and you were I think you must have talked on the phone because there must have been a reason that it was called that. But so I got gifted like a 3-month membership to this like real life matchmaker thing. I had to go to a co-working space to physically meet with this person to answer these questions.
Whose office was in a co-working space?
Their office was in a
like in a WeWork.
It was in a WeWork. It was actually in WeWork, like around like Fulton Street. Went to the WeWork.
Sat in a
little glass
cubicle.
conference room.
Everyone around you saw what was going on.
Absolutely. That would be a really funny office to be near because you see them doing like these matchmaking intake interviews like all day. So they did a little like interview thing with me, like I feel like I really like understand who you are. This is really helpful. And like give you matches or whatever. So they guarantee you 3 matches a month or something like that, 2 or 3 matches. I mean, it wasn't like a whole lot, but the sell was that it was like very carefully curated.
It was vetted.
And they really, having met both of these people, thought you two would get along. That was in theory. In practice, and they were like, you shouldn't say no to anyone. That's basically what they're like. You should just, there's a reason we picked this person. You should just go on the dates. So I went on dates, I did go on a lot of dates with this particular platform. Mm-hmm. I'm going to reference an F. Scott Fitzgerald story called Bernice Bobs Her Hair, where they talk about the way to become really popular is to dance with all the sad birds, mm-hmm. quote unquote. And then when everyone sees how popular you are, that will raise your social capital. I don't know. All I can say is that I dated a lot. I went on a lot of dates with a lot of sad birds, and that I got such positive feedback from the sad birds that I then became like the person that they would set them up, like the real, like difficult cases up with because I was able to make conversation with anyone.
Oh.
That's what they told me. So then I was like, that's kind of like rude. Like, so my punishment for being able to like really talk to anyone about anything for 1 hour was getting sort
people
of
that had no relation. I mean, it's separate from whoever these people were.
I'm not saying that they were inherently bottom of the barrel people,
not related to who they thought made a good match for you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they were like gross or bad people. It was just like that they had no relation to any like compatibility with me. It was just that like I was able to like talk to them.
Yeah. So what other ones? Is that the last one that you have?
Well, no, I have like, I've of course done the Tinder and the Feels and all that. And I think in general, the pithiest conclusion about those is just that like the apps that have the reputation of being sort of like kind of like most meat marketiest kind of things are actually the places where you are able to like have the most like sort of respectful exchanges, ironically, because of people's ability to be kind of more upfront about what they're looking for and what they want. And instead of it being couched, like some of the like worst misogynists that I've met have been on Bumble.
Right.
And then some of the like coolest people I've met have been on these more sort of things that are viewed as being sort of more the hookup, like,
right. Well, I think
apps.
if you need an app, if you're designing an app in order to create some sort of perception of solving for the ills of society,
right,
and dynamics, like that doesn't do anything. That just provides a shield for the men who are going to think and act that way anyway. I mean,
right. No, that's a really good way of putting it.
Better to be, if the person you want to meet is going to act how they're going to act, regardless of what the parameters. Let's actually
just like try to have cards on the table, because then at least I can use my common sense to vet those people out before they like. I waste my time. And
let's even go further in the other direction and find ourselves in a space that's thought to be a hookup space, and then someone acts and interacts the way that is appropriate for them. It doesn't.
Yes.
It's like they don't need to. No one needs to be crude or
it's like not gross. It's like
gross just because they're in a place that some people would say could be and can be crude and gross.
Right. And
it's actually the place where you're going to see authentically.
And that is a better
who is
measure
who.
of character. Just because you can be gross there doesn't mean you have to be gross there.
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
See you.
Yeah.
Well,
this is why I've often said that I like Grindr. I'm not on it right now, but in that
like better than like a traditional dating.
You can decide who you are, and you can remain consistent in who you are. And why are we demonizing this app that actually is just a collection of people who don't have guardrails? Like, we aren't in kindergarten. I don't need a teacher in the form of an app over my shoulder telling me what's right and wrong. That's I can do that determination, what I'm comfortable with, who I'm comfortable talking with, and what I tolerate,
and what you're looking for,
and what I'm looking for.
And I think that it does require you to be much more certain about what you're looking for. So I think that can be scary for people. And
it challenges people's respectability. People want to be respectable.
Yes.
They want to be perceived as respectable.
Yes.
And so to be in a place that is perceived as not being a respectable place means that you also have to set your ego aside.
That's that. Although so on very like related sidebar, despite like, so we're in our 30s saying that like the so-called hookup apps are like the place to have more more respect and like a better connections and better conversations. And the Cut, New York Magazine, just ran an article about like how the younger folks who are coming of age or whatever are turning away from hookup culture. And someone responded to that article on Twitter with a graph. The graph was people who had reported not having had sex within the last year. And the largest demographic of people were people in their 20s.
Yeah, this is an epidemic.
Somewhere between 20 and 25% of people surveyed between the ages of 20 and 29 had not had sex at all, at least within the last year. Maybe longer, but it only measured within the last year. And the people with the lowest number reporting that were people in their 30s. I think it was only like 7% of people in their 30s reported that they hadn't had sex.
I mean, we don't have any historic data on this.
No.
So maybe it's true that people in their 30s always have more sex. I would be willing to believe that.
I would be 100% willing to believe that for sure. And I'm not trying to draw more from that graph than, who even knows? I don't know what the background was and what the sample size was and where this was conducted. Right. So I don't want to live and die by that, but it does seem like it speaks to sort of like a trend of youth being like either unwilling or unable to participate in that.
Or maybe the repercussions of living the majority of your life on the internet. Where the internet tells you simultaneously to be on it all the time, but also to be afraid of everything.
Mm-hmm. And skeptical of things.
And so be afraid of it, but be on it. And so
only be vulnerable in really specific kind of ways.
Paralyzing.
Yeah.
So I can be vulnerable on my couch into the void.
Right.
But I can't use it to actually
be vulnerable,
physically connect with anyone, whether it's sexually or in any other way. It's
intimacy, like interpersonal intimacy versus digital intimacy.
Not physically in person.
Yeah.
Not even intimate, but just getting together in person.
Right.
To do a friendly activity.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of young people who would rather text than talk on the phone. I'm a person who would much rather talk on the phone all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sign of our age, I guess.
What really frustrates me is when you have to work through the technology in order to get to someone on the phone.
Right.
Well, this is like your sister's salad pizza order. Where we don't even have to get into the whole story, but the upshot is that because the waitress couldn't figure out how to put a specific order into the system, then there was no way it could be done.
Basically ordering raw vegetables that were available as a topping. She's like, I can't sell you the toppings without selling you the pizza. So because I can't figure out how to put it in the system. So I'd have to charge you for an entire pizza minus the pizza to give you the toppings. What I can't
do is say a small a small vegetarian pizza, 86 the pizza.
Right.
And then she's like, that means I'm paying $17 for some sliced up bell peppers.
Right. Yeah, and that was a case where the technology really, really hampered us. In fact, nobody ate vegetables that day.
Because of the machines.
And this is how the robots win.
It truly is.
We write, curate, and produce as VJ and Stevens, and you can subscribe to Don't Think Twice anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're currently back to curating live productions and writing and pitching our scripted works for television. You can learn more about us at vjandstevens.com. That's VIJAY and STEPHENS. We're on Instagram at VJandStevens, and our assistant Susan is lousy at tweeting at Memos from Susan.
Close up. What do we smell?
It smells like... Close up, it smells like lotion. It smells nice. It smells floral.
Okay. Now from a distance.
It's giving me a little bit. It's giving me a little bit of urine in the carpet. But on a hot day. It's the sun is streaming in and it's warming the spot where someone hath peed a while back. And it wasn't properly cleaned.